Welcome to the Restoration Ninja Profits Podcast, highlighting the unsung heroes of the restoration industry. Tune in today for success stories and insider tips. Now, here's your host, Lorraine Duncan.
So here we are on the Restoration Ninja Profits Podcast, and I'm so glad to be here. My promise to you, as always, is I'm going to give you a little bit of verbal caffeine. It's going to energize your business and help you stay social. Because after all, don't you want to be the business that everyone's talking about? I know I do. And I'm so stoked today to have David Ask with me. Welcome, David.
What's going on? Thanks for having me.
Yeah. And so can you tell my audience a little bit about what you do and who you serve?
Yeah. So, it's interesting. I knew most of my life that I kind of wanted to run my own business and had a real entrepreneurial spirit, that kind of thing, but I just didn't know, what that niche was. And about 10 years ago, my brother-in-law and I actually started a business together based around a thermostat guard, a thermostat cover with a combination lock. So we all know the thermostat wars, of course, whether that's in your home or your office. It could be your spouse or your kids or the person next in the cubicle next to you or whatever it is, always jacking around with the temperature. Well, not only is that, of course, a costly problem because, for whoever's paying the power bill there, but it's also, creates just some discomfort for, whoever's in that, that particular facility and so on. So I was working for a large telecom chain for many years. And of course we used stat guards everywhere, but nobody could keep up with that tiny key. So we came up with the world's first thermostat guard with a combination lock. So you don't have to worry about losing the key. And it's called the Stat Guard Plus. And we're in 3,700 retail stores right now, and just growing that company. And so, anyway, I do a variety of things. So I lead a couple of different mastermind groups inside of the Iron Sharpens Iron Mastermind. I do some coaching, and believe it or not, I do a bit of music. So I've got a pretty wide, a wide variety of skills and interests. So yeah.
Wow. Yeah. It seems that way. Yeah. Like my husband and I are very involved in music. He's in a band. Years ago, I was a wedding singer. So
Nice.
used to have a lot of fun with that. So it seems like, with everything that you do, you have a very creative side to you.
I do. Yeah.
And sometimes I'm going to address this because I think it's important. There's a lot of companies I work with, restoration companies, pest control companies, and, attorneys, and just all wide variety of people. And they are good at one thing or two things. And, sometimes we get stuck in so much what we're good at that it's hard to think of all the other things in being an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
So I guess my question to you is that you have like a lot of passions. You have a lot of things that you're really good at. How did you, obviously you're in 37 retail stores. So how did you?
3,700.
I'm sorry, 3,700. Wow.
Yeah.
3,700 retail stores. How did you do that with like having all these other things that you like to do? Obviously you've never been a CEO before. You've never been. So
yeah.
How did you like learn all that? Like what was like the big key in just being able to put that all together?
Well, of course, that's a heck of a longer story, but I'll try to paint a bit of a succinct picture and back into it this way. So I grew up, kind of some limited thinking as far as, what does it look like to run a business? Or, what does it look like to, I don't know, I'll put it this way. What does it look like to be a man, and run a business? And I was honestly kind of just under the understanding that I just had to learn how to do everything and be everything in the business and so on. And so what's fascinating is, of course, in even my teens and 20s and so on, I tried some, various businesses and this and that, small endeavors, as it were. And, really started feeling that frustration where I'm trying to sit on every seat on the bus. And I'm not sure if you're familiar with the book, The E-Myth. by Gerber, and he talks about you have the entrepreneur, you've got a manager, and you have a technician. Largely you've got just three categories of personality types. What's fascinating is only I think about 5% of the population is truly the entrepreneur personality type. And, just because you start a business and, you're going to make, in his book, he uses an example of making pies. Like this lady, made amazing pies, and everybody told her, you need to start selling pies. Well, she decided to make pies, right? Well, and do a storefront in the whole 9 yards. Well, then she had to start, sitting in every seat on the bus to bootstrap this thing. She's doing the books at night. She's doing the marketing. She's making the pies. She's doing the sales. She's cleaning, doing all the stuff. Well, she just got totally burned out because she realized she likes making pies, and she made amazing pies. But she was not an entrepreneur. She was not a manager. And so why am I saying that? How do you get into 3,700 retail stores? I realized that I needed to stay in my seat on the bus. This idea of self-awareness, right? And understanding who the heck am I? How did God wire me to get really clear on that and to get laser focused on my strengths and what really causes my energy to rise, and then find partners, to help. Made all the difference in the world. So I ended up licensing my product to another company, and they've been a wonderful partner now for about 10 years, and we're just continuing to kind of grow together. Of course, you get partners involved and the pie is split, but at the same time, I realized that if I tried to do all of this on my own, I might not be able to do it, for one thing, and it would be absolutely exhausting. So I really think that, success largely for me has been, it really goes back to that other book, Who, Not How. And, find the right who's in your life, and it's amazing what you can do.
Yeah, I love that. I love, it's to have that awareness. It's like every entrepreneur goes through this. It's like they're being everything in their business. They're doing everything. And it happens to me all the time. It's like I end up doing something that I'm not supposed to be doing. And then you're starting all over again. So it's like, you have, you mentioned earlier in the call about being involved in some masterminds and leading some masterminds.
Yep.
What kind of people are in your mastermind? And can you share one story of somebody who had really a great awareness and really was able to turn some kind of problem around within it, or just like build a bigger business or get better? Could you share a little bit about that?
Yeah. So the mastermind that I'm in is called Iron Sharpens Iron Mastermind. We call it ISI, and it's for men only. But I've got probably 160 men from maybe 5 different countries who are involved in ISI. And it's a wide variety of people, everything from contractors to attorneys to doctors to, product developers like myself. Everything in between. And so what we basically are is, I guess I'll back into it this way, is you have a board of directors, a virtual board of directors for your business, but you also have a kind of a band of brothers for your personal life. So we really talk about success holistically. For instance, if your family is falling apart, but you're making a lot of money, are you a success? Absolutely not. But the vice versa is true, right? What if your family is actually doing rather well, but you're having a hard time putting food on the table? That's not success either. And, so what does it look like to just, in general, be winning in life? And we paint that, that picture together, like, just gain some awareness around what is the definition of success here for everybody in their own uniqueness. And we just help each other win. And so so to answer your question with regards to, as an example, there's a guy that runs an asbestos abatement company down in Georgia, and just a fantastic, person. But it's been fascinating to learn his story, because, he started his business, like most people do, and just, I'm going to do everything. and I'm going to just white knuckle this thing and just force everything through and push hard and, make it happen. All that, kind of language that we often hear. And of course, for years he just struggled, and his business, just about went under because he was not only driving himself crazy, but everybody else on the team, because he was so afraid to let go of the reins and allow people to operate in their strengths. In fact, he didn't even have an understanding that that was an option. It was, he treated people more like cogs in a wheel that he needed to kind of motivate out of fear, as opposed to find the right people to sit in the right seat on the bus and empower them to do what they're great at. So, I think he's been in business 25 years, but really it's only been about the last decade where the business went from just barely making it and borderline an absolute train wreck to he had his best year ever. And at one point, last year literally had $1 million in cash in the bank, for the first time. And at the same time, right, he was empowering those around him to do what they're great at. So he took his time hiring the right people, found out what their, unique strengths were, what lit them up, incentivized them to do well in that position, and took his hands off the wheel in a lot of ways, and became a leader, someone who worked on his business and not in it. And, it's really remarkable. And that, again, that's a quick story, right? There's so many more, details in there, but I think that paints a pretty accurate picture.
Yeah. And, the number one thing that always comes up, especially because you mentioned that, there's, you work with a lot of people in the mastermind, but, a lot of home service businesses, maybe some plumbers or restoration companies. And the biggest thing that I always see as I work with a lot of restoration companies is that cash flow is a huge thing.
Oh, yeah.
And so do you have, maybe a quick tip for those out there that may be struggling with cash flow, and maybe one of the thing, what could be one thing that they could possibly do that just could turn that around?
Well, I'll give you two. So I love this idea of having multiple accounts, so every single month, you're probably familiar with the Profit First book and, kind of business paradigm there. And a couple of guys that are in ISI coach businesses through Profit First. And I would say that is just a fantastic model. And it really helps you to put the systems and processes in place that, that really serve the business, as opposed to just kind of reactionary type, living and so on. But I love this idea of having, multiple accounts, so that you've got your tax account, you've got your profit account, you've got, all these different accounts that separate, the various expenses that are coming up, as well as your own needs for that matter. And, so I think, I forget who said this, you might even know, the quote is, "We don't rise to the level of our expectations, we fall to the level of our systems." And I just think systems and processes are this nice white picket fence that just keep us kind of hemmed in. And otherwise, we often, live out of emotion. So if somebody calls and, the squeaky wheel gets the grease, right? It's like we end up just reacting to things, as opposed to saying, no, I have absolute clarity on the way that I run my business, because people like us do things like this. The squeaky wheel never gets the grease, because we've already predetermined what's important. And then, I think something else too that's really important, and I'll just kind of laser in on the tax thing, because that's been front and center for my business here lately. We got hit with another tax bill because I just didn't pay in our quarterlies enough. And, I need to up that. And now we've got, of course, another quarterly coming due in, mid-April here. And so I really think that, cash flow and taxes are probably the number 1 and 2 areas where, businesses get really hemmed up. And so I would say that, at least once a month, maybe depending on your business, every week, you are pulling out whatever percentage you need to put in that tax account, because guess what? That money is not yours, period. And I'll be honest, I'm I'm one of these guys that's in general pretty conservative. And I would say that if you run a small business, get ready to be a fiscally conservative voter, because you know full well when you run a business and you start paying taxes and you literally have to set aside 35-40% of your money that literally is not yours. You're going to start thinking about absolutely everything different. And but that's the taxes, I think, are where so many small businesses get behind, and then it's so hard to get caught up.
Absolutely. I know so many entrepreneurs and business owners, brick and mortar people that get stuck there. So that's pretty doom and gloom.
You're right. Yeah.
Like when you hear the number, like you said, 30% to 40% of that money isn't yours, like then you're working for 60%. And then from that 60%, you have to pay everything out.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, what's left for you? It's like, it almost seems like the government will get more money than you will.
Oh, in many cases they do. And that's a hard thing. And I think, something else, even as I was saying that's rising to the top is predetermining your market. Like, I only serve people like this because, your margins have to be a certain amount. You can't serve everybody. And it's not to say that you can't help somebody when they need it and things like that, right? And just be a good human. At the same time, you have to have absolute clarity on your avatar, as it were. I serve people in this space because I have to make this amount of money, or I don't have a business and I can't serve anybody, let alone myself. So you've got to be really clear on who your customer not only is, but needs to be.
Yeah. So I don't want to spend a lot of time on talking about the doom and gloom of businesses, but I want to have fun here. My podcasts only usually go about like 20 minutes. Yeah. So I want to touch on a little bit, we all have to have, work, I think that it's so important that, if you work hard, you should play hard.
Yes.
And you have some fun with music. You've had 3 musical experiences. Tell us a little bit about that and really how you got started in that as like being a hobby.
Yeah. So it's funny. This sounds a little weird to say. There's a few of these I actually can't mention on the air because they made me sign non-disclosure agreement. So I'm actually looking at one of them on my wall because it was like one of the coolest musical experiences of my life. But, so I grew up in a musical family. My mom was a music teacher, and I always tell people we were forced to sing when we were little, right? Get in the car, we're going to the nursing home, and, we'd have to sing. But I realized early, that, probably when I was 14, 15, I can do this. And it was interesting because very quickly, I started winning competitions and getting, all types of opportunities to sing, for and with some really amazing people. This was back in Minnesota. And then I moved to Nashville in 94. And since then I've cut 3 records. I've sung for, or at least backup in some capacity for almost every country star and, gospel artist here in Nashville. And then I've been able to sing on some stages, by myself. And in fact, by the way, Lorraine, my daughter is 17, and she is first chair in the children's orchestra at Vanderbilt. And she's a wonderful violinist. So now my daughter and I actually get to do a lot of performances and stuff together. In fact, her violin school is going to Germany and Austria in July, and I'm actually going with them, and probably going to sing a couple of songs with the group. I did that in Italy 2 years ago with them. But I absolutely love music. I love inspirational moments, whether I'm talking, whether I'm singing. I kind of like this idea, the word inspire means to breathe life into. And I love encouraging. And I really believe that I can use, so many different sides of my skill set and personality to do that. And I'm grateful to have, just, even at 49 years old to be, actually, it's funny. In my 40s, I've been able to do some of the things I never dreamed that I would get to do musically. And I'm so thankful for those opportunities. Like I said, I've cut 3 records. And if somebody's interested, you can go to, on iTunes and Spotify. I've got a record online as well that you can listen to and so on that I'm, super proud of and so on. But I get compared to Josh Groban or Andrea Bocelli quite often. In fact, when Bocelli was here at Bridgestone Arena in Nashville, I was asked to sing backup for him and so on. But I love being creative. By the way, one of the things that my creative side, I actually had a children's book published about 5 years ago. It's called Fire and Ice, The Very Scary Noise in the Trunk, about two little mice named Fire and Ice. And I'm working on another one right now. But I think in general, whether I'm creating thermostat guards or other products or books or music, I think I'm just a creative. And when I realized that if I surround myself with the right people, I can stay in that seat, it just started to really shift, what I thought was possible and what is possible. So
that's awesome. I believe when I first got introduced to you, I actually listened to a duet you sang, and I played it for my husband. I did not tell him that it wasn't the people who really sing the song, and he thought it was the people who really sing the song. So it was really good, and it actually happened to be one of my favorite. It's one of my what was it? I think I heard you sing the prayer.
Yeah, that's the one that Andrea Bocelli and Celine Dion made famous.
And actually, Josh Groban has a version of it, and other people have come up. I do like Celine Dion's voice in that. So music just soothes the soul. It honestly does. And
great.
If you're having a bad day at work, I'll just turn I need to upbeat because I have a whole day of podcasts or whatever. I just turn on some really energetic music to just get me moving a little bit. So
it's incredible.
It's been fun. I want to thank you so much for being a guest on my show. If somebody resonated with you today, or they might need your guidance with coaching because you're an amazing person,
thanks.
How do they get in touch with you?
Yeah. So, if you need to control your energy, of course, support my business, go to statguardplus.com or our new one, by the way, is lockboxpro.com. And then also, I just always like to tell people, you can visit my website, davidask.com. And let me know how I can help you. And I don't care what it is, no strings attached, and I'll do my best.
Awesome. Well, thanks again. Until next week, everyone. This is the Restoration Ninja Profits Podcast, and I'll see you soon.
Thanks for joining us today on the Restoration Ninja Profits Podcast. Armed with today's insights, you're set to elevate your restoration company. Be sure to subscribe to stay ahead, and don't forget to rate and leave a review wherever you listen to your podcasts. That helps others find the show, and we greatly appreciate it. We'll catch you again in the next episode of the Restoration Ninja Profits Podcast.